Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the first ever episode of CattaBlah Reviews. So today we're going to be reviewing Subnautica, as we recently just finished it. We're going to go through some of the pros and some of the cons. Starting with the pros, one of the things that I absolutely loved about this game was just like the environment. The graphics, amazing. It's what I really liked about it was that it's really different. Because everything takes place underwater. Every other game is above water, you see the same scenes, you see a forest, you see a building, you see a field. Underwater, there's just so many different... there's just as many different things that you can show underwater as there are that you could show above water. And it's not something that is done ever, really. This entire game is basically underwater.
I think just kind of adding on to that, the creature design was something that I really noticed. With the angelic fishes and whatnot, they were every single thing was different, and right up until the color palette. Nothing really had the same color palette, nothing had the same design. You could argue some of the Leviathans kind of looked the same, but at the same time they didn't. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was pretty flawless when it came to graphical design.
Yeah, and and you get the two different looks at it. During the day, obviously everything's kind of lit up. You still get your nice underwater colors. The fish are obviously all colorful. But then when it hits nighttime, they made a lot of things bioluminescent, so everything just really brightened up. They found a good way to make it seem bright even though it was dark out. And I thought that was a really cool thing. And also on to the point about all the different kinds of fish and stuff like that. It was really neat how they made it so you could scan everything and get information about it, and even some of the stuff you needed to be able to get different blueprints to build stuff. Right off the start, one of the things that I found was I think I just grabbed, but also if you scanned one of those bladder fish, and then you could actually use that to make water. Because off the start, I remembered having trouble making bleach. That could just be because I didn't know exactly where to find the stuff. Obviously, I played through a second time, and then it was really easy to find salt, which is one of the things that I think I had trouble finding to make bleach before. So I thought that was really cool, is that a lot of the stuff you interact with in the environment plays into building recipes, and just that was pretty neat. But yeah, just all the different kinds of fish and plants and just everything you could find, I thought was really, really neat. It made the game really diverse, and left a lot of stuff to find.
Let's compare this, because this is an exploration game. Mm-hmm. Let's compare it to something like No Man's Sky. Everybody is pretty familiar with No Man's Sky, Infinite Universe, but Subnautica did it right. Subnautica did it right, that there was different things in a specific area. Sure, it wasn't automatically generated. There was really no AI, but at the same time, there was more to explore in this single water. I wouldn't even call it a planet, because it was just
one area.
It was just one area, and there was more to explore on there than these other games that tote for massive universal exploration. If these developers got their hands on something like that, able to do a universe, they would knock it out of the park where everybody else has failed.
Yeah, and and that could be also because it was set underwater.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of new stuff to work with. Because there's so many different biomes underwater, it's really easy just to take the small area, right around the crash landing, and just fit in all these different places that you can go and that you can see, explore. And then on top of that, a lot of these had places underneath them that turned into a whole nother place to explore. So you get the parts on the top, kind of on the seabed, and then you go down a cave and a tunnel, and you find a totally new place. And you go through that, leads you to another place. It was just, there was so much to explore, and I feel like that's what a lot of the game is. It's about exploration. It's about just going around and looking for stuff. Because off the start, you start the game in an escape pod. You see your ship blowing up above you, and you end up in the water. That's it. So after that, you're like, okay, well, I need to survive. Obviously, I need food and water. You'll find that out fairly quickly because there's kind of one thing is that your food and water off the start, it goes down quite fast. And so when you're out trying to do stuff, you also need to quite often worry about, oh, you know, I can't go too far because I need to find some food and water now, and I have to go back to my shuttle to cook that food and water or synthesize it.
Yeah.
Which I found was another neat thing was the synthesizer. So it kind of gave you a one-stop shop to be able to make all that stuff. So you did need specific ingredients. So it's like any other kind of exploration crafting game. Certain things need X material of this material, X of the, Y of that material. So that once you got it, you go to your synthesizer and it just makes it for you. You don't need to have any special thing. I need this to be able to craft that, or I need this special machine to be able to craft that. It's all in one place. You find the blueprints you need, you get the materials, and then you're just able to make it.
I think what makes this game the best, though, when it comes to exploration, was the atmosphere that they created. You're crash landed on a planet, and they actually generate this feeling of helplessness. You're on a planet, you have nothing, you are scavenging, there's all these new creatures, there's things like the leviathans that come out of nowhere, and just, they ruin your day. But that's something that a lot of games have a lot of trouble doing. But this game did it with, I noticed the sunsets, when the light started going down and you noticed that the sun rays stopped reaching everywhere where it was before, and it created this feeling of dread because you don't know what's out there anymore. You all of a sudden, you're traveling 20 feet this way, and all of a sudden there's a Reaper in front of your face.
Yeah, that's like, they start you off in a safe area that's quite fairly shallow, which I thought was a really cool way of allowing you to progress further into the game. Is you have 30 units of oxygen off the start, and they start you in a shallow area so that you're able to get down to the sea floor and, you know, collect stuff, search for stuff, and then you have to go back up for air, which was another neat thing that I thought they did, is that you need air, and you kind of see your bar going around, and then it'll give you a warning, and it really gives you the sense of dread that you're like, oh my, I'm out of air, I need to reach the surface. I know there's a couple times when I played where we were almost out of oxygen, and you're just like trying to make your way to the surface, and you just really tense moment where you almost run out of oxygen, you hit the surface. Like, they even start making your field of vision kind of slowly close in and go black as you start running out of oxygen. It just gives you that whole extra feeling like you are actually underwater and you need to breathe. It gave you a sense of urgency, which I thought was cool. But back to what I was talking about. So they give you that. As you go on, you find blueprints to go deeper, to get, higher capacity oxygen tanks, and that opens up new areas for you to go and explore. So I thought that was a really neat way of kind of limiting you off the start until you find certain things and kind of get accustomed to the game. And then you get certain other things like high capacity oxygen tanks, you get better fins that allow you to swim faster. You're starting able to build some of the equipment as you find blueprints that allow you to go faster, go deeper. If you get like a sea moth, it allows you just infinite oxygen. So that all allows you to kind of branch out into new areas and start exploring more. And which I guess also introduces new dangers. As you get into deeper water, you start finding more aggressive species of fish that are going to eat you. And I mean, I know the first time I went into a new area I hadn't been, and all of a sudden I hear this loud scream, or like a roar, I guess, essentially, and I turn around and there's a leviathan, and it eats me. And I guess that's another thing too, is just like you can hear a lot of these fish, especially the dangerous ones, and it just, you don't know what it is, you don't know where it is, you just know you heard something. And it's like you said before, it just gives you that sense of dread.
Sense of dread, like you're running out of oxygen, you're running out of water, you're running out of food, there's this thing roaring in the distance, the sun just went down, the music has changed. All of these different things, all of these different aspects just add to an unbelievably great environment in this game. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to a game with a great environment, I could not recommend this game more.
And what was I gonna say? Along with like the environment, they did really good with the music too, and kind of giving you some parts of it are relaxing, and in some areas it really
it's coming.
Yeah, it really tenses the mood with the music that they use in certain more dangerous areas, darker areas. They just have that shift in music that just encompasses you and gives you, even more immersion and sense of fear of what's gonna be in this new area. One of the things that I'm on the fence about is that they don't really give you any goal. And I mean, some of these exploration crafting games, they don't. But off the start, you can see your crashed ship off in the distance. So you kind of have a feeling, oh, well, I should probably go there. But other than that, they don't really give you any kind of direction.
Right. And with that, let's get into the cons.
Yeah. So I guess that'd be one of the cons too, is not really having a sense of direction. I know, you go towards the ship, but then after that, you get some messages here and there. As you explore the ship, you get PDAs that kind of build a bit of a story for you, but it's still it's kind of like a big question mark. What happened? How did this happen? They fill in bits and pieces, and what to do.
Yeah.
So it's good in a way that they make it open. You just go explore, do whatever you want. Some people like that. I like having a bit more clear of a goal. So that could be a pro for some people, con for others. For me, I know when it's just a big wide open a world, it's almost overwhelming. Because there's all these things that you can do, but you don't know what to do. So I guess that's kind of one of the things I maybe had a problem with. Also knowing, sometimes finding the blueprints was kind of hard. And to build certain things, you needed to find certain wrecks. And I sometimes had a problem. I didn't know where to find certain stuff, and I needed this stuff to kind of progress further. And I know other people would say, well, go explore. It's an exploration game. But at the same time, I don't want to spend, 2 hours trying to find one thing so I can go further. I know when I was searching for the Cyclops, which is a big submarine that you can build, looking for all the pieces, I think it took me 2 to 3 hours to find all the pieces before I finally just went and looked it up online. Just, where can I find this stuff? Because I couldn't find it all, and then I felt like that was the next big step that I needed to progress, was to get the Cyclops. So it really stopped me for a long time. And I don't know whether that's just something they added to maybe make the game longer, and stop you from progressing going around too fast, or what. But I know I had a bit of trouble with that, and that made it maybe longer and felt like I was stuck more than I needed to be.
I think the biggest thing about this game is, yes, I love the environment, yes, I love the design, but if you don't like grinding games, do not buy this game. The first 4 to 5 hours of your life in this game is going to be figuring out how to get sustainable water, how to get sustainable food. So when you're in this situation where you don't know where anything is, you've been dropped in this life pod, you have to find all these things, you're trying to figure all these things out, you have no idea how to do it, it can be a little bit infuriating, and it's kind of hard to do unless you have the access to the internet to actually go and research this stuff. So like we talked about before, there wasn't a lot of guidance in the game that way, and I found there was a lot of struggling. A lot of people didn't see it, but there was a lot of stuff that Josh was doing off screen because we had to, otherwise we would have been doing another 20-30 episodes. So that's kind of the really big downfall in the game for me, was there was a lot of points where they were super dry, super uninteresting at that point, because you're just trying to find a single ore, you're trying to find salt, and if you don't know where they are, you might dehydrate before you get there. They might be at a place where you think it is, and you might drown before you get there. So the start of the game is one of those things that if you're not willing to get by that 4 to 5 hours of hard grinding, don't buy this game.
Yeah. And I mean, there's something can be said about just the new environment and being able to explore, as it's new. That keeps you kind of interested through the learning parts, just because it's really neat to see all the different stuff and find all that stuff. But like Dustin said, I know off the start we had some troubles finding water, how to make clean water, and the stuff that we needed for that. Constantly needing food, the ores that we needed to find stuff. Like, I mean, after you find it the first time, obviously, yeah, okay, well now I know where to find it. It's easy, but if maybe maybe we were kind of stupid off the start too. I'm sure that didn't help any, but finding it the first time and where to find certain things can be really hard. And if you don't find it within a certain amount of time, the game becomes a lot tougher because it's harder on resources. And I mean, like any game, like the better stuff you want to get, it takes longer. You need to find stuff that's harder to find. You need more of it to build certain things. So it can get a bit grindy later on too, when you're trying to make some of the bigger stuff. But that's to be expected, I guess, as you go further. But yeah, I mean, for me, I could have used a bit more story. But as you play the game, it does build some story. But I feel like those parts are kind of few and far between. And I feel like maybe if there was a bit more, finding more story and maybe filling in more kind of in the middle or the beginning to middle parts, it would add another part to the game. It's fun enough finding stuff, building stuff, but if you add more story into that section, I think that would make it just kind of more overall better. Like I know as you get later in the game, that's really all there is left to do is just explore and piece together more of the story. So kind of middle to midway through the game, you don't get a lot of that, which can be... I don't like games that are kind of confusing, that leave a lot of the story open until later, just because then I feel like, well, what am I really doing? I'm just playing this game just for the sake of playing the game. Which I mean, maybe that's just me, and because of the genre of game that we're playing, that's just what it's like. But I feel like not all of them are like that.
No,
I don't know.
I think my biggest disappointment with this game, other than the grinding, was the amount of bugs that were in this game. I was really disappointed with that. They had a lot of support right from alpha to beta. They had given copies to the streamers. They were basically getting free advertising. There was a Kickstarter going. They were backed by a lot of different funding areas, and there was a lot of game-breaking bugs where we couldn't continue the recording because we had either phased out of the ship or we had phased out of the map and just kept falling. I know there was some instances where you were doing your solo stuff leading up for the recording, and there was a lot of stuff that happened there as well that made it unplayable, and that's something that disappoints me. For a game that is this graphically beautiful, to have that many bugs and not being able to fix that, because it's not like they're hard to reproduce. And I also seen streamers run into these exact same bugs as we did, and it did have continued support. So the fact that wasn't fixed is a big negative on my part. Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say some of them the clipping through the map I reproduced several times. And I feel like that's probably one that should have been fixed. There was other ones that I couldn't do it after, like the first time I did it. I tried to do it again and I couldn't. So, maybe those are a bit harder. Maybe other people hadn't ran into them. But yeah, there was a lot of clipping through maps that we had problems with. So that was a bit of an issue. I know that the game is still in early stages. It's just unfortunate that I guess we ran into those issues so often. Yeah. And I guess one of the other bad things that I found was that it maybe didn't last that long. The first time through, you probably get a fair amount of gameplay out of it just because you're figuring out how to do stuff. But maybe there's not a lot of replayability, because the second time I went through, I basically got to the same spot that we in our gameplay. I don't know how many hours we would have spent
maybe had 24 hours worth of gameplay in it, and I got to the same spot in 4 hours the second time through. So I wouldn't say the replayability is high. Like, I mean, it is still a fun game. I enjoyed the beginning part a lot more than I knew what I was doing the second time through. But to get to that late game was, I found, quite quick. So I wouldn't say there's a ton of replayability just for, you know, you've already done it all. You know what everything is. So you're just kind of going through the motions the second time because you already know what you need. You know where to find it. You know where you need to go. What the best places to go are. So it's just like, it's almost like a speed run the second time through. It's just much quicker. And then I also felt once I found most of the main blueprints that I lost interest in it just because it almost seemed like there wasn't anything left to find. Like, sure, you can go and explore new areas. You know, find some wrecks. That's kind of one of the recurring things, was that you're finding wrecks throughout the game, and that give you new formulas, you find new information. But I found that as I kind of ran out of blueprints to find, that it felt like there wasn't really anything left for me to do. And at that point, it's just like, okay, well, now I can just go look around, which, I mean, that's great and everything, but I don't want to just go look around as a game.
Yeah, realistically.
Look around the game, you know?
Realistically, you could probably finish the game 6 hours because you know where everything is at that point. You could go and get yourself off the planet, and that's the end of the game. Other than that, I really don't have any other cons to say.
No, overall, I would say it's a very good game. I would recommend it to anybody to play. It's a lot of fun if you like exploration kind of games, crafting games. It's a ton of fun. And even, you know, you can just build bases and build like there's so many blueprints you can find that's just of like extraneous stuff, like chairs and plants and beds and shelves and all that kind of stuff, just to pimp your house out, you know, kind of thing. So like that could be another whole part of the game, is if you just want to build a base, like this huge base with a bunch of cool stuff like that in it, like that, you could probably spend hours doing that too. So I would definitely recommend this game to anybody. Like there was the things that we had that were issues with the game, I wouldn't say are overly big, other than like the couple glitches that we found. But honestly, overall, really solid game, a lot of fun. I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, that's all I really have a problem with it. Unfortunately, the bugs and the grinding did kind of kill it for me, and that could be personal preference. For this kind of game and for how much I enjoyed it, I give it a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Honestly, I'd probably go even higher. I'd give it probably an 8.5 to 9. It was just it was a new idea, having everything underwater like that, and just the vastness of it. I just thought it was original in a sect that had in a video game genre that has a lot of stuff already in it. It was original within that whole concept. So I would probably give it like a 9. I thought it was really fun to play. So yeah.
There you have it. CattaBlah gives us a 5 out of 7.
I give it out of 8. So there you go. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.